In this video, we are going to learn what is constraints in MySQL and how we use it. You can see we have a list of MySQL constraints, and here are the green constraints that we will learn in this video. And there are two constraints left, named foreign key and primary key, that we will cover in our upcoming videos. Now the question is, what is constraints? It's mean restrictions. Restrictions on the columns of our data table. This determines what kind of data we will insert into our data table. We already know how to make a table, but we can have a problem if we make the table that way. Let me show you the problem. You can see a table on your screen. I do not use any constraint in our table. You can see in our table that the ID was not entered correctly for Sophia. Similarly, Emma forgot to insert her gender in gender column because we do not use any restrictions. You can see Advan is 16-year-old, but the minimum requirement for the college is 18 years. In that case, he will not able to admission in college. And we know each student's phone number is different. Phone number should be unique. If you notice, Sophia and Advan have the same phone number. At the end, suppose our college is in Delhi, so most of the students will came from Delhi. So every time you need to insert Delhi as city. So we want to do something like that. If we leave the name of the city blank, then it automatically insert Delhi as city. For all the problem, we have different constraints. So for ID and gender, we can use not null constraints. Similarly, we need to add restriction for age column. For restriction, we have another constraint named check. First we need to type check keyword, then inside the round braces, we need to set our condition. In our case, age greater than equal to 18. It means if student age is below than 18, he is not able to join this college. Similarly, we want to use unique phone number for every student. In that case, we can use unique constraint. Similarly, we need to use unique constraint for our ID column. So for city, we can use default. We can set our default value. So if we skip this column, it automatically insert our default value. And also we can insert different city name. Let's see how we can use these constraints in real life. We basically use it when we create the table. To create a new table, we need to type create table, then our table name, then inside the round braces. And when you go to make a column for ID, first we need to declare data type, and then we use not null constraint because we don't want to leave it blank. Then we use our second constraint unique. If we set unique, then we do not duplicate our constraint value. And for name, our data type is varchar. Similarly, I don't want to leave it blank, so I use not null constraints. And for age, I'm going to use multiple constraints. Our data type is int. First I use not null constraints, and then I use check constraints. And inside the round braces, we can set our condition. And for gender, we use varchar data type, and I don't want to leave it blank. And for phone number, our data type is varchar, and I use two constraints, not null and unique. So we do not copy student phone number in our database. So the same phone number cannot be used repeatedly. For our last column, city, we use two constraints, not null and default. So if student leave their city name, it will automatically insert Delhi as city. Then I close our table using round braces and semicolon. So we use it this way. So let's see the practical how we can use it in our queries. So finally, I am back to my MySQL Workbench application. And I also open my XAMPP control panel. First I'm going to start my Apache server, and then I'm going to start MySQL. And just wait for green signal. Now our localhost server is ready. So let's create the connection. First I'm going to hover on my connection name and then double click on it. And you can see our previous code in our query section. In the previous video, we insert multiple rows at once. So let's add another student in this directory. So first I'm going to remove these lines. For our next student, our ID is 5 and I do not change my student name and I forgot to insert gender value. Let's run this command. So I'm going to press this thunder icon and you can see the green signal in our action output section. Let's back to the table. If I run this query, you can see in my table our gender is blank and I have used the phone number twice because we do not use any restriction in our table. To resolve this problem, I'm going to create another new table and I'm going to delete this one. To delete table, just hover on your table name and right click on it. And now you can see an option, drop table. Now you can see a confirm box on your screen and just click on drop now. And I back to my query section and I'm going to create the same table once again. But this time I'm going to use constraints. To create a new table, we need to type create table and our table name is personal. Then inside the round braces, our first column name is ID and its data type is integer and I don't want to leave it blank. So I use our first constraint, not null, and I do not want to repeat this ID in our table. So I use unique constraint and our next column name is name and its data type is varchar and I set limit for 50 characters and I don't want to leave this column blank, so I use not null constraint. And for age, our data type is int and I don't want to leave it blank, so I use not null constraint. And I want to set limit for student age, so I use check constraint. If age is below than 18, then he is not able to join this college. Comma, for gender, our data type is varchar and I use not null constraint. And for phone number, our data type is varchar and I use two constraints, not null and unique. And for city, our data type is varchar and I don't want to leave it blank, so I use not null. And if any student forgot to provide his city, then we need to use default constraints and our default city is Delhi. So our query is complete. Let's run the query. So I'm going to click on the flash icon. You can see the green signal. So our query ran perfectly. And if I refresh our schema section, you can see our table name personal. And if I click on our table name, you can see the column's name and its data type below on your screen. And if I open our personal table and open our columns, also you can see the column's name. ID, name, age, gender, phone, city. Let's see the table. So I hover on my table name and click on table icon. And I want to insert a student in our table. So I'm going to type the query. Insert into, our table name is personal. Then inside the round braces, we need to provide our columns name. ID, name, comma, age, gender, phone, and city. And then we need to type another keyword, values. Then inside the round braces, our student ID is 1. Our student name is Ad1 and he is 19 years old. His gender is male. So I type capital M. And for phone number, I am going to type some random numbers. And he is from Delhi. And I use semicolon to end this line. So our query is complete. Let's run the query. And you can see the green signal in our output section. Let's see the table. Just hover your cursor on your table name and click on table icon. And you can see the first data in our table. Let's add another student in this table. And this time, you forgot to enter gender value. So I remove gender from our column's name. And also I'm going to remove this one from our value section. And also you forgot to change student phone number. And our student ID is 2. And our student is 18-year-old. And our student name is Anna. Let's try to insert this value in our table. So I'm going to press flash icon. And you can see in my output section there is red signal. We set our phone number unique and it shows the error for duplicate entry. So first we need to resolve our phone number problem. So I'm going to change the phone number. And once again I'm going to run this query. And this time you can see a warning sign. It's worked perfectly, but it shows some warning. It warns gender doesn't have default values. If I back to my table and show you my table, you can see our gender section is empty. Empty means null value. Let's back to our query section. And once again I'm going to use our gender column. Age, comma, gender. In our value, I'm going to provide capital F for gender. And this time our student name is Susmita and her ID is 3. But she forgot to provide her city name. And this time I'm going to remove city from our column section. Also I remove city name from our value section. But if I run this query, it's not going to work. Let's run the query. Because once again, we do not change student phone number. Student ID and student phone number should be unique. We do not duplicate their values. So I'm going to change the phone number and then I'm going to run the query. And this time you can see it's worked perfectly. There is no warning. But if you notice, we do not provide city name because we use default constraints for this column. Let me show you our table. So I'm back to my table and run this code. You can see by default the city name is Delhi. Let's add another student. And our student ID is 4. And student name is Rahul. And he is just 16-year-old. And his gender is male. He is male, so I type capital M. And I also change student phone number. And if I try to insert this student in our database, it's not work. Our query failed it because we set limit for student age. If student below than 18, he is not able to join this college. So I'm going to change his age. Now he is 20. And also I want to use city column. Phone, comma, city. And this time I want to enter different city name. And Rahul is from Kolkata. And if I run this query, you can see now it's worked perfectly. And if I show you my table, you can see we can insert different city name. If city is not available, then our default constraints put Delhi as his city name. So I hope now you understand how we can use constraints in our columns. It is very important to use. I hope you understand the use case of unique, not null, default and check. Thanks for watching this video. See you on the next tutorial.
Press the bell icon and subscribe the YouTube channel Getsitement. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and share this video with your friend. I will see you guys in my next video.